Well, what's going on, everyone? I spent the weekend at Mythicist Milwaukee. It's not a great thing to say with my occasional lisp, but I thought I would share a bit of a review because I found the reaction pretty interesting online because it seems like the reactions of whether or not the convention was good or not, or whether or not it was interesting, is mostly coming from people that weren't even there. People that weren't there have some very strong opinions on whether or not the event was successful. And I know this is going to come across like a humble brag, but I had some unique access. I'm friends with one of the presenters, Carl, and at least e-friends. We met up and we got to play some Magic, and he was very kind to me and introduced me to a lot of people. And with his endorsement, I talked freely with organizers of the show. I got inside information about how it was set up and the costs and everything that went into it. And I feel like I'm uniquely able to. There are other people with better, closer points of view, but I feel like I can provide an unbiased opinion. As somebody who doesn't normally attend these types of things, this is the first time I've attended this, and I would consider myself more agnostic in terms of religion. So I wasn't one of the people that were there like solely as an atheist to talk to other atheists. I flip-flop back and forth. I'm still trying to formulate like my belief system strongly. That's the biggest reason I went. I wanted to hear a lot of different opinions so I could more confidently debate people and more confidently expand my breadth of knowledge. So I want to start off with some very basic review type stuff, okay? Tickets, $175, definitely not cheap. But if I went to like a similar event for like Magic the Gathering or something, I would pay $60 or $80 to go to a convention, and it wouldn't have this much knowledge in one place. I paid, actually, check that. I paid for the VIP because I wanted to do the VIP after dinner because I wasn't totally sure I was going to be able to hang out and meet enough people at the actual event, because I know how these types of things are. To a smaller degree on my main channel, if I go to like a Magic event, I run into a lot of people, and it's just really hard to talk to people. And I wanted to specifically talk to Carl, Sargon, Greg, and June from Armoured Skeptic, and actually Miscavige. When I was there, I was hoping to get a chance to talk to him. And I was looking forward to really talking to a lot of people. The price is up there, but I feel like this is like an upper crusty event for the VIP. Is the VIP worth it? I don't know. I think they could do a lot better next year in order to make VIP feel more VIP. I was polling a lot of people in the VIP party what they thought about the event, and I think the general consensus was it could have felt more VIP, if that means anything. It was still pretty hard to get access to some of the people, Sargon or Skeptics specifically. They generally had pretty big crowds around them, so if you didn't know them, it was probably really hard to get a hold of them and really feel like you got in kind of one-on-one or even like 10-on-1 time. Maybe they consider something like scheduled small groups. I don't know how that would work. Maybe let me know what you think about that. That was one thing that popped in my head that maybe they could do is, since they had so many different conference rooms, they could do, sorry, my cat is, of course, he's been kind of clingy since I've been gone, but maybe they could do, if they sell 100 VIP tickets, there's 6 groups of 15 people or whatever, 12 people, whatever the sizes need to be. And you can each go, and then they have like a mini panel. Something like that might be kind of interesting to really get in some specific questions to specific people. But I will say, I want to give a huge shout out to, and I don't really know Armored Skeptic or ShoeonHead personally at all, But I do feel like I can share something from being on the convention circuit and attending circuits or conferences for my main channel, which is much smaller than their channels. But when I go to like a magic event, there's 100 people maybe that want to shake my hand and get my ear. And I always I really try to make a point to talk to everybody, shake everybody's hand, ask their name, ask them how the event's going. And the sheer amount of people that were coming up to them is significantly more than I ever dealt with. And I have to say they all handled it extraordinarily well. In terms of, like, Sargon met with people, from when he got off stage until almost 5 o'clock, shook every hand, took every picture, smiled for every picture, never seemed like he was annoyed. Greg and June took every picture, shook every hand, talked to everybody. They were hanging out in the public, the common areas. So that is, I have to give these guys credit. From what I understand is they weren't exactly paid to be here. Maybe they had travel covered, but they definitely went above and beyond to shake their fans' hands. And that goes a super long way. And I know from experience that after you do it 50 times and you start over 50 different conversations, it can really grind on you. And these folks are doing it probably 100 times or 150 times, 200 times in a 2-3 hour window. And they, smiled for every picture, never seemed to be uncomfortable. And that goes a long way. Like, I don't want to undersell that because when you pay for like a premium event like this, you want this kind of access, and you want to meet these people, right? There were a lot of people there that spoke that, other people were there, right? Like, I was there for these 3 people, but there were lots of people there. I actually got to spend some kind of good one-on-one time with several of the speakers. And I probably wish I would have attended more events. I really didn't get, I kind of slept in a little bit, and it started off with June and Greg, and I thought they did a fine job. Both them and Carl, I think this was their first public speaking events, or maybe their second, right? And so it was what you would expect. There were a lot of nerves, and it's something that you have to practice. Nobody's just great at public speaking the first time. I mean, I guess there's probably a small percentage of people that are, but, you could see some nerves were out there. Some adrenaline was going. And Melissa Chen, very, very interesting talk. Then they had the break, and then after lunch, we'll get back to this, but it was really definitely the headline event for me, which was Sargon Avocad and Thomas Smith on stage, which was pretty explosive. But Ron Miscavige, that's actually, in my opinion, a pretty good get for the con. I thought that was pretty interesting. And then they had the buzzed belief debate, which was Faisal Saeed Al-Mutar, hopefully I pronounced that right, and Azra Nomani. And interesting side note, Friday night I was at the hotel bar staying at Aloft with everyone else, and Faisal came in with, I forget her name, but a very nice friend, or I don't know what their situation was. They were traveling together. Maybe they were dating. Maybe they were just friends. I don't want to make any assumptions. Both of them were very nice. I spent about 1 hour talking to Faisal and her, and the only reason I remember his name now is because I saw him then speak the next day. But, I don't agree with his ideas, and he probably doesn't agree with mine, but we had a very nice conversation that was even, like, we were both drinking, and it stayed civil, it stayed really interesting, and that got me really excited for the event. Unfortunately, there was a patron of the bar that was not attending the event, who's there from Chicago, who we had a really weird interaction. He actually came over to Faisal and like put his finger in his face and told him to like not share his opinions. It was kind of a tense moment. Fortunately, I was like 2 feet and about 100 pounds heavier than this guy. I don't know what his problem was. I know he was really drunk. He had been there since I'd been there, and he probably drank as much as me, and he was significantly smaller. But I didn't hear anything come out of Faisal's mouth that would have prompted any, he mentioned, I believe, that he was not a Trump fan, but he wasn't, and I do know the other guy was, and then the other couple at the bar was, and maybe that was just enough to trigger this guy, but I try to catch up with, I didn't get to talk to him again, but I was able to talk to her at the after party, and I tried to, apologize on the behalf of Wisconsin, and say like, hey, shoot, I'm sorry that happened. That really kind of bummed me out because, it only takes one asshole like that to kind of confirm a lot of biases. And, I feel like I can never really go out there and be so confident anymore about saying like, hey, there's no idiots like this out there, because I saw it happen right in front of me. And, the movie Batman versus Jesus, I missed it. I actually took the picture of the creators. I took their picture later, and they asked me how the movie was, and I said I didn't see it. And they said, oh, we made it. And I felt like a real asshole. And then I was really questioning, like, maybe I should have lied and just said it was great. But I didn't know who it was, who I was taking the picture, because after I felt kind of obligated to keep an eye on Carl, because it's a big crowd, and not to again say like, well, I always deal with it. I've done a lot of these, and I don't think he's done really any where you have a meetup and you get a lot of fans, and it can be overwhelming. So I kind of wanted to keep an eye on him, and I think he appreciated it. I tried to just kind of make sure he had water and be his unofficial cigar holder and jacket holder. But I think it made it easier for him to talk to more fans, and I've yet to send him the bill, but it's going to be expensive. And I missed the movie because we were actually playing Magic. We went and played Magic at a local bar for about 3 hours, had a blast. And this is the first time I met Carl in real life, and he was about exactly as I could imagine. Very kind and polite, and we didn't really talk a lot of politics. We talked about card games, and we talked about travel, and we talked about normal people stuff. People forget internet personalities, they're not always on, so to speak. And I think he appreciated being able to just chill and not, not debate. And he was the same at the after party, same with Greg and June. They were shaking hands. And honestly, Thomas Smith was there too, as my video showed, but he was there, talking to his fans. I didn't even really know who he was going into it, so I really didn't care, too much about hanging out with him, especially after the display he put on stage. But I think it's important that I think overall, having the convention at the Pabst Theater was a huge plus. Beautiful venue. The price didn't bother me that much. Some of the people I talked to, they said it was expensive. It was about the price of like a playoff basketball ticket or playoff football ticket. And to me, the show delivered. The fireworks, there was the intellectual talk. Then there were the fireworks of Sargon and Thomas Smith. And, to be honest, I'm sure they're going to release the footage and rent it out or post it or whatever. And I can only just strongly recommend you check it out. I don't have any personal issues with anybody I talked to there. Thomas, I think, was shook. He came on stage to some mild applause, and then Sargon walked on, and it was basically like immediately clear everyone in the room was there to see him. Not that other people didn't sell tickets, but at least in that time slot, everyone in that room, 85% of the people in that room were there to see Sargon. And so he comes on to like a rock star welcome. Basically, there could have been pyro and all this stuff. It felt like that much energy when he walked on stage, and you could just see Thomas shut down immediately. And within about 20 minutes of the scheduled hour and 25 to hour and 30 minutes they had, he had completely checked out. He got very emotional at one time. It really did look like he was going to cry. And I think even Sargon pointed out, you look like you're going to cry. And I felt bad for the guy. I really did. He obviously believes what he believes. And I can't, in some things he's probably right, and some things he's probably wrong. And so I don't want to take anything personally against him. My biggest problem was just in how he handled himself. Very young, very immature, yelling insults at the crowd. You know, it was like 20 minutes in, he called the entire crowd deplorable, called us bad people. It was very bad. And then, you know, the crowd turned on him, and it was just, whew, there was blood in the water, and that was it, you know, and a lot of you probably saw the footage. I wish that he had been cooler and calmer and more professional, and I feel like their talk on stage would have been more productive. But it was really just those two, like, taking shots at each other, and just Sargon's way better at that. He understands his beliefs better, I think, and so it's easier for him to debate. He's not amazing at it, but he was way better than Thomas, and Thomas will get better. And you know, unfortunately, I doubt he'll be invited back given the problems he caused. And you know, him refusing to do that, him kind of being a jerk about the Q&A was a real issue for me, because you know, people paid to see him, right? A lot of people. I would honestly say there were probably just as many VIP tickets sold as regular, maybe even more. So let's just use the $175 number. There's a lot of people that paid $175, and you should have seen when they opened up Q&A. People were jumping over each other to get in line. And to me, if you're a paid member, a participant of this, then you should respect, if nothing else, respected the people in that line paid for a chance to just ask you that one question. And he was on his cell phone, on his laptop, packed up his stuff, and he literally stormed off stage at exactly 2:40 or 2:45, whenever the time was. He was acted like a real baby. But ego is real, emotion is real, and I certainly can understand why he just wanted to get the heck out of there. I assume I would, had I put in that kind of performance. Fun anecdotes, you know, the security guy told me he basically flew out the door, still had the mic on, had to come back in, give the mic back. I mean, he wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. But to his credit, he still showed up at the after party. I was honestly shocked. I was really surprised that he showed up, and impressed. Unfortunately, later he put on a bit of a display, and then I knew why he was there the whole time. He wanted to try and regain his manhood, and he chose a really terrible time to do it, because as somebody who was there, who was with Carl almost every minute after the convention, after he spoke, there was never a crowd of less than 20 people around him. And so when Thomas and his goon buddy tried to put on this real life skit where they're like, "Hi, my name's whatever. Oh, you're Carl? What's your name?" And they start screaming at him, like trying to pretend that he like interrupted Carl when he was talking to someone else. Carl's going about his own business, and this guy like got real aggressive and burst in, and then the girl that was with him was drunk and loud, and she grabbed his arm at one point. He had a cigarette in his hand, but he was also being animated and talking. And she like grabbed it. "Don't put your cigarette in my face." No, he wasn't. He was trying to have a conversation over here, and she was like sidling up to him, and you know, it was close to her. Of course it was. She was standing 6 inches from the guy. He wasn't sticking it in her face like she tried to say. And I filmed it. It turned out terrible, but I was honestly just filming it because I know how some people are. They would have spun that as, you know, Carl was the aggressor, blah, blah. It wasn't how it happened at all. The event organizers got in the middle of it, called security, and kicked out this other guy who actually has a pretty prominent podcast as well. Probably had a chance to attend MythCon the following year, but obviously that's not going to happen. I think he was probably just trying to stick up for his friend. He saw his friend kind of get owned in front of all these people, and he felt like, don't worry, I'm going to get his back. And I can respect that. But he was very aggressive and angry and like basically yelling in his face. He did that stupid like 5th grade thing where he's like, "I'm not blocking your way. Walk past me. Walk past me. I'm not in your way." Like, it was so pubescent. And it was awkward, but it didn't bother Carl, so of course it didn't bother me. But I was nervous for it. You know, I was nervous things were going to get a little more, you know, a little past just heated. and fortunately the event kind of stepped in there. So overall, I think it was a good time. It was a pricey experience, but I think if they can add more value to the VIP experience, I think people would be happy to pay it again. Maybe it's more drinks because you got just one drink, and it was an extra $75. You got one drink and pizza, and they had plenty of pizza, so good on them for that. Because a lot of times they have free food or food included. It runs out. I took a piece of pizza with me to my room at 4 a.m. So they had plenty of pizza. Probably would have gave everyone a couple of drinks instead of just one, and then maybe considered some way to get some smaller group breakouts or something like that. But overall, I had a great time. I almost wish it was 2 days and had more events to go to. But if they have it, when they have it again, I'll definitely try and attend again, regardless of who's speaking, because I think it was very interesting. If you were there, I'd love to hear your take on it. If you weren't there, I hope you found this informative. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again real soon.